Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here, another week of the NBA in the books, second week of the 2023-24 NBA season. A few clear standouts really starting to step away from the pack, mainly in the Western Conference. A couple of key performers in the East. In the West right now, things starting to heat up very much how we expected they would. Of course, you can see here from the very front who the two real leaders of the charge from both sides of the conference were in the second week of the season. Of course, only a shortened week coming up here in week 3, only the 6 days worth of play. But nonetheless, a few sides really starting to stick out, a few other sides that are certainly going to be chasing some tail. A few others that certainly started slow and have started to make a little bit of a run. We'll see how they go, but certainly some interesting movement, some interesting players and performances so far through 2 weeks. So without further ado, let's get into it. Week 2 of the 2023-24 NBA season. We'll start over with Atlanta, 2-1 on the week, 4-3 on the season. Their best performer, Dejounte Murray, 24.3 points, 5.3 rebounds, 7 assists, 0.7 steals, 0.3 blocks on 3.3 turnovers, shooting over 49% there from the field, doing as well as he can on the week there. 47.8% from deep and 85.7% from the free throw line, as you can see in their games. Got the win against Washington and New Orleans, lost to the Thunder. The only question there is, well, is there still a wrestle for who is the man on this team? When Trae Young is leading from the front and shot jacking and really struggling to put the ball in the hole, they get a couple of wins here or there, but they don't have the same effect as when Dejounte Murray's out there trying to score efficiently, get up towards that all-NBA level defense that he can play, and generally proves to be, more of a key cog in their success when he does do that. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that, things will start to wane, things will start to work themselves out. But again, this is the real put up or shut up year for Trae Young to really try and make a point as a number 1 option. For Dejounte Murray, needs to have a bounce back season after a rough year in Atlanta and certainly not a gracious ending to the season last year. So that arm wrestle there as to who the man is going to be key, but if they're above 500 and sort of making that playoff run, they're not going to be as phased about it as one would think. Over to Boston, 2-1 on the week, 5-1 on the season. Their best performer, Jason Tatum, on the week there again. 31.3 points, 9.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.7 steals on 3.7 turnovers. 54.4 from the field, 47.8 from deep, and 87.5 from the free throw line. Of course, that correlation between a good 3-ball shooter and a really, really good free throw shooter generally overall will show what sort of shooting form a team is in, or certainly a player is in. Their 2 wins, Indiana and Brooklyn, they absolutely smashed the Pacers there. One of the franchise's all-time leading wins in any sort of game, realistically. Went down to Minnesota, who were on a real hot run. One of a few teams to win 3 games certainly this week were the Timberwolves. Have to ask the question, are they the best team in the East? Right now, there's still some teething issues there with Giannis. There's still some teething issues there with Lillard. Of course, Philadelphia now having to find their feet without Maxey. Boston really starting to make that case there right now as the best team in the East, and they've got depth everywhere, as we've mentioned. I still think there's a little bit that's going to be hinging on the performance of Kristaps Porzingis, but I've got no doubt the regular season with Brown, with Tatum, Derek White stepping up, as we mentioned before, and Drew Holiday, that this team can certainly get it done. Are they the best team in the East? If they're the best team in the East, can they very well go on to contend for a championship? Going to be the only question there about genuinely being able to compete at the business end of the season. We'll see over the next few weeks, but right now, certainly staking their claim as the best team in the Eastern Conference. Over to Brooklyn, 2-2 on the week, 3-4 on the season, so slowly improving there. The best player was Mikal Bridges, 22.8 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 0.5 steals and blocks, less than a turnover a game, and respectable splits there. 45.9 from the field, 32.3 from deep, 86.7 from the line. Got their 2 wins against Miami and Chicago there, and went down to Boston and Milwaukee. So probably gives you an indication of where Brooklyn are sitting right now. The real question is, though, how long can Cam Thomas truly lead this team's offense? It's going to be a real gamble to let him be the absolute number 1 option. Of course, if he's going to be a continuous scoring threat, and he's going to be able to lead ahead of someone like a Mikal Bridges, even a Spencer Dinwiddie. They probably need to sort of put a bit of credence into it. But how good is your offense if Cam Thomas is leading it? He very well could be the most improved player in the league, so he does have a case there. I think there's a guy in Toronto that's certainly breathing down his neck, or if not leading that. But yeah, the real question for Brooklyn, we know they can get it done on the other end of the floor. This guy's a leading example of it. Ben Simmons is another guy that's an example of it. Nick Claxton's another guy who's an example of it. But offensively, I just don't know with Cam Thomas. I mean, he's pouring in a lot of points, but is it effective enough to lead the offense into a position where they can win games and compete for the playoffs, let alone be competitive in a playoff series? We'll see how that one unfolds there. Charlotte went 1-2 in the week. They're 2-4 on the season. Now, it's really tough for me to sort of pick who the best player is any given week. For me, it's really basic. You have to have played in all of your team's games. You have to be pretty efficient or stand out statistically somewhere along the line. Which is why I've got Mark Williams as the best performer there for Charlotte on the week. 18.3 points, 7.7 rebounds, 1 assist, 1.3 steals and 1.3 blocks on 2 turnovers. It's the efficiency from the field though, 83.3% from the field on 18 points. That man needed to see the ball a lot more on offense for this team to succeed. 71.4 from the free throw line, reasonably complimentary as well. 2 losses there, of course, to Houston and Dallas. Got the win against Indiana. And I think the real question is, who will be the consistent glue of the team? Terry Rozier one week, Mark Williams this week. Will it be LaMelo Ball the week after? Will Brandon Miller step up at some point? It's good to see these guys getting attempts, but you're going to need some pretty good consistency for them to lift. Of course, Steve Clifford outlined how poor defensively they were last year. You could argue from a roster standpoint they were the worst team in the league last year. So they've got a lot of work to do. But who the consistent glue guy for the team will be will ultimately decide them. If they're going to be running with a really low-end kind of guy as their glue guy, they're not going to do very well. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But right now, with the way they're playing, there's no reason why they can't really continue to sort of shape and shift that. There'll be a team in the West we talk about in regards to that, just letting them find their feet. You know, there's some star power, there's some positive power there with their leaders, but at the end of the day, you need that glue guy, you need that consistent glue guy, because it's the only way the chemistry on this team is going to lift. Over to Chicago now, and they went 1-3 on the week. Yes, 1-3. They're 3-5 for the season. Their best performer too. Nothing to really brag about here. Genuine second, third option level performance here. As the number one, DeMar DeRozan, 19.5 points, 3 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1.3 steals on 0.8 turnovers. He did save himself in the efficiency department there, so he probably should have got a few more looks. But 46.8 from the field, 42.9 from deep, 89.5 from the strike. Lost to Dallas, lost to Brooklyn, lost to Denver, got the win against Utah. Ultimately, when will management make a trade? It's a matter of when, not if. It's a matter of when. Do they get rid of Vucevic? Do they get rid of DeRozan? Do you trade Zach LaVine away? They're your only options. Something has to be done with the Bulls. Again, on their night when they're playing at their best, genuinely look like one of the toughest teams in the league to beat. But it's hard to be the toughest team in the league to beat when it's tough for you to beat any team in the league. So yeah, it's ultimately going to come down to who they trade, where they trade them. DeRozan's old. Vucevic has had 10 years in the league, consistently as the number one man, as a double-double guy. He's probably going to have to take that step back. LaVine's still got time as a leading scorer, or certainly a number 2 option. I mean, DeRozan's still option as a number 2 as well, but I just don't see how this team's going to transform, particularly if they're not going to use Vucevic as that pass burst like a Jokic. We'll see what happens from there. Over to Cleveland, 2-2 on the week, 3-4 on the season, so they're starting to try and turn things around. Donovan Mitchell, their best performer, 31.3 points, 4 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 1.8 steals and 0.3 blocks on the week, 3.5 turnovers to boot. 50-40-90 shooting splits, can't ask for much better from there, particularly from a shooting guard. They got 2 wins. They avenged their initial loss to New York and got a win against Golden State. As we mentioned, had that loss to New York, but also had a loss to Indiana as well. I just wonder whether there's enough room for this team to grow. So you've got Sexton, you've got Garland, who's growing as a guard. You've got Mitchell, who's hitting his prime. You've got Mobley that's hitting his prime. where do all these pieces fit? I just wonder whether there's really room for this team to grow without sacrificing a couple of players here or there. Can they sit there and just, yeah, we've got all these guys and yeah, I reckon we can do this? Or do they just try and make a couple of moves here or there, ease some pressure? It's going to be a really interesting move. I mean, Mobley's clearly their best two-way player. But he's not as good offensively as Donovan Mitchell. Defensively, you've got Jarrett Allen that can be there as well. But Mobley's young enough that you can build around him and he is your own. So a lot of questions there for Cleveland. We'll see what happens. Again, I just don't know if there's enough total in around that team for them to truly grow and develop into what they need to be a true contender. But we can certainly see what will come of that one there. Over to Detroit, pretty average week for a pretty average team. When they started shocking a few people here or there, particularly in the first week. But overall, I don't think anyone's really surprised to see what Detroit is doing at the moment. 0-3 on the week, 2-5 on the season. Their best player, Cade Cunningham. Really interesting efficiency stats from here. 26 points, 3.3 rebounds, 7 assists. Pretty good for a young guard trying to step up in the league. 0.7 steals, 0.3 blocks. Has a bit of work to do. 6 turnovers a game. Flat out unacceptable. 42.5 from the field, 31.8 from deep, 81.8 from the stripe. So not doing himself much favour from the line. 0-3, as we mentioned. They lost to Portland, they lost to New Orleans, and they lost to Phoenix. I think the key here is Cade Cunningham getting the ball through sets of hands and getting other people involved. Can he willingly give up possession of the basketball? You can't be shooting less than 45% as a guard and turning the ball over a lot. We're not talking massive production like a Nikola Jokic. We're talking about a guy who's 26, 3 and 7 on 6 turnovers, shooting 43%. And that's not from deep, that's from the field. So it's going to be a management thing for this team if Cade Cunningham's going to be the number one. Don't get me wrong, he's had some really good games, some nice looks. But if you're going to be turning the ball over at that rate at any point in the season, you really do need to consider things, because it's not letting any credence to any success whatsoever. So Detroit, they need to get that ball swinging, they need to get it moving, and if Cunningham's going to be turning it over and not shooting efficiently like that, they've got to get it out of his hands as well. Of course, over to Indiana now. 2-2 on the week, they're 4-3 on the season. And for me, their best player played in all 4 games, and that's the ultimate crux of this one here. Miles Turner, 16 points, 7.8 rebounds, 1.8 steals, 1.8 assists, 1 steal and 1 block with 2 turnovers. Efficient shooting as well, which is good to see. Defeated Cleveland and the Spurs. Massive win against the Spurs, but of course, absolutely thrashed against Boston and barely scraped away with a 1-point loss there against Charlotte. Just weren't able to close that game out. And I think at the moment, the Pacers are the barometer of the East. Realistically, if you can beat Indiana, you're a genuine playoff team. You're a genuine top 6 team. I thought it was going to be Brooklyn, but it's probably Indiana right now. So if you're betting them, you're a top 5, you're a top 6 team in the league, you're looking like you're going to be able to be competitive, and you're going to be able to have a real say in how the playoffs unfold. But if you can't beat Indiana, you're probably going to be playing tournament at best, and you may not even make it into the first round, let alone out of your first game. But there's plenty to like about Indiana still. They're 4-3, 2-2 on the week. Still some good basketball ahead of them. One of the better teams in the league. Again, it is on paper, and it's certainly not to that absolutely extravagant levels of, say, Los Angeles Clippers, but they're still a very solid team. They've got plenty of pieces around them. There's a reason they were in trade talks last year. I just think that if they can settle and stay with the roster they've got, look to build around it, maybe get one more piece, then you're looking at Indiana in a different light. There's no doubt about it. I just think they're a barometer team. If you're beating them, you're a genuine playoff contender. If you're just falling short or just scraping over, okay, you're probably at the pass mark. But if you're nowhere near Indiana, you're nowhere near the playoffs. It's as simple as that. Over to Miami now, and they had a reasonable return week there. 2-1 on the week. So far, 3-4 on the season. Their best player, highlighted by his monster game against the Lakers, Bam Adebayo. 20.3 points, 12.7 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1.3 steals and blocks, 4 turnovers, but you can see just what he's doing all over the floor. 53.2 from the field, made every 3 he took, and made 8 out of 10 trips at the line. 2 wins on the board, as we mentioned, defeated Washington and defeated Los Angeles, lost to Brooklyn. I think the big key for this team, though, is that they're going to need to reduce the minutes of Kyle Lowry even more if they want to have success. And Kyle Lowry, no doubt about it, a solid point guard over the length of his career, an all-star level point guard. One of the key reasons for that Toronto championship, one of the leading players in the history of that franchise. Has tried to do his bit when he's got to Miami, and it just hasn't happened. He's older. He plays a different game style. He can't be relied upon in the small ball era. Really, really easy stuff there. So I think once his minutes start to get reduced, wouldn't be surprised if he's a trade piece or there's a free agent to come in or someone available to just take that point guard spot. And I just think you'll see, as Lowry takes that step back, the team begin to prosper just a little bit more. We'll see how that unfolds. But again, I just think he needs to get those minutes reduced, and he needs to do it sooner rather than later for any success for this team. Particularly if they want to make another miracle run. Over to Milwaukee, 2-1 on the week, 4-2 on the season, so they're travelling at a .67 win rate, which is nice. It's just certainly not the Milwaukee team that we've expected before. Best player in the week, Giannis again, 24.7 points, 8 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 0.7 steals and a block, 4.3 turnovers. Is certainly not something that you want to make a habit of, but when you're going to be scoring efficiently like that and bringing it both ends with a presence, you're going to get away with a little bit more. Again, lost to Toronto, but defeated New York and defeated Brooklyn. It's a matter of seeing when the chemistry settles in this one here. You're going to have players in and out of the lineup around their stars, and you've got a brand new star on the team. And of course, it's going to take time, but once they start to really lift up their profile as far as other rotational pieces getting games in, as far as the combination of Damian Lillard and Giannis start clicking and the other pieces can feed off that, then you start to really have a gauge of when that chemistry is going to settle and when they're going to be able to click. Because there's no doubt about it, this team's going to click at some point. It's just a matter of when, not if. Might be a little longer down the track. It may be a little sooner than we think. I think it's a little more further down the track. I think this is going to be a team that's going to try and get themselves in a good position at the All-Star game and then try and really have a solid run home, get some seeding, cause some upsets there. So how long until the chemistry settles? Well, it could be 6 to 8 weeks. It could also be 3 months. That's pretty much the time frame in regards to how they are going to be able to develop as a unit. Over to New York, 2-2 on the week, 3-4 on the season. They're trying to make inroads there. Their best performer was RJ Barrett. 21 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2 assists on 3 turnovers. Nothing special to brag about defensively there. That's the reason it isn't involved. Also shooting 48.3% from the field, 55.6% from deep and 90% from the line. So he's still continuing to have an impact on the scoreboard and doing it to a really high level, even without the defensive numbers and implications there. Of course, the team split their series with Cleveland, got the win against the Clippers, but lost to Milwaukee prior to that. But the big question right now in New York is the leadership dispute that's apparently going on between Brunson and Randall. Now, it's going to result probably in Brunson keeping the helm because he's been the big catalyst of change for the Knicks. But what goes on with Randall? This is a guy who over the last 3 years has yo-yoed from most improved All-NBA third team to what are we doing with him to, hey, we're back to All-Star All-NBA level to what are we doing with him? There's way too much fluctuation. So what the leadership dispute is, I don't know. I have a feeling it's probably related to Joel Embiid trade talks. Brunson's not mentioned in it. Barrett's not mentioned in it. But quickly, Robinson, Randall and Fournier are certainly mentioned in it. And I wouldn't be surprised whether there is just that dispute of going, hey, that's my team. No, sorry, I've come in now. I'm the leader of the team. We'll see how it unfolds. I think that ultimately is the reason for that leadership dispute. The problem is it's also the reason for all the problems that this team is currently having. Over to Orlando, they were 2-2 in the week, 4-3 on the season. Their best performer, Paolo Banchero, 23 points, 6.3 rebounds, 6.3 assists. Consistent defensive numbers there as well. I'm not a fan of the high turnovers, but I understand it with the usage. Plenty of efficiency from the field. 7 out of 10 from the line, something he'll want to improve on. Of course, looking at overall, lost to the Clippers and lost to Dallas, but got solid wins there against Utah and the Lakers. And I think the question is, when you look at how young their list is, when you look at their draft pick abilities, their draft capital, everything involved with the team, are they in a better position to make a run than the Thunder? Like, this is a team second year in, we're not even questioning competitive ability. We saw them last year after their first 20 games. They would have been a playoff team any other point in the season. They just didn't have a great start. So I wonder whether there's a little bit of that as well, maybe some trepidation about it, but I don't see why not. You've got to be in it to win it. Now, I'm not saying Atlanta can win it, but they can give it their best shot by trying as well as they can to make the most of the situation, because as I mentioned there with the Thunder, they're still backwards and forwards on decisions. Orlando aren't that team. They have a genuinely good chance, if they want, to try and make an early run and just sort of make a point that, maybe the Thunder are just sort of holding back a little bit. We'll see what goes on there, but I think Orlando certainly have time to try and, make that second year appearance as an all-star. And someone like a Banchero is going to be very, very key for that one as well. Over to Philadelphia, and as I highlighted, the only 3-0 team on the week in the East, 5-1 on the season, and Joel Embiid dominating as always. 34 points, 11.7 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.3 steals and a block on 3 turnovers. 50-40-90 splits from the big man. Big effort. They defeated Toronto. They defeated Phoenix. They defeated Washington. The real question is, what is their next roster move? Because I'm pretty sure that Joel Embiid only has 2 options here. He's going to try and stay with the team. They're going to try and build around him, knowing that in 12 months' time they've got plenty to offer. Or does he get out now before the All-Star break? And if so, is he going to Miami or New York? He's apparently heard the talks about it. So we'll see what goes on there. But if I'm Joel Embiid and I'm wanting to go to Miami, it's only one man that is going to make any decision for me, and that would be the great Pat Riley, especially if he's going to pull the usual stunt of bringing out the championship rings, letting him know that that's what he can win. Here's how you do it. You may as well stay with us. We'll see what goes on there. But it's that next big roster move for Philadelphia that's ultimately going to decide things for them. Whether it's coming in or blowing the roster up, it's going to be one of the two. But we'll see. Joel Embiid really starting to stack his case once again. Again, there's a reason he's a reigning MVP. Pretty simple stuff. Of course, second last team here in the East, the Toronto Raptors, 2-1 on the week, 3-4 on the season. And this man right here on screen, Scotty Barnes, balling out, had a massive week, 25 points, 10.3 rebounds, 6.3 assists, dominated the defensive end efficiently on the scoring end as well. Wins against Milwaukee and San Antonio, lost to Philadelphia. The real question now is, what do you do with Toronto? Are their 3 best players too good to trade? Like, as individuals, yeah, I think you'd get a lot for Scotty Barnes. I think you'd get a lot for OG Anunoby. I think you'd do a fair bit of work with Pascal Siakam. But that's a pretty good lineup. But if you're Toronto, you don't want to try and reconsider things. You want to try and get people involved. They're really going to have to look, are you going to trade each piece individually and blow the team up? Or are you going to try and keep it and build around it? Because I'd be pretty happy to try and build around, especially if you're going to have Anunoby as your point. You can run Siakam at your 3, you can run Barnes at your 4 or your 5. You cover your 3 main areas. Why not? It's certainly something for them to consider. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but yeah, I just feel at the moment their top 3 players, they're too good to trade. So go all out on them. Try and make a run for the next couple of years. See what you can do, especially when there's that upwards and downwards spiral of the Eastern Conference. Certainly an opportunity there if they want it. Over to Washington, average week at best for them. 0-3, 1-5 on the season. Kyle Kuzma, their best player, to an extent. 25 points, 6.3 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 0.3 blocks, 2.7 turnovers without doing anything much on the defensive end. Not lighting it up from the free throw line. I mean, 50-40 is really good, but backing up your ability to shoot the 3 is usually the free throw, and they haven't been able to make any of them either. Lost to Atlanta, lost to Miami, lost to Philadelphia. When are the veterans, and who are the veterans that are going to try and calm this team down? We see it a lot, these young guys that think they can run the joint and know the place and know exactly what's going on, and then something like this happens and they've got no clue. Like, great numbers, awesome. But who's guiding you? Who's trying to set the foundation for you just to do something? To try and make an impact, to try and win a game, try and make a playoff series. At 1-5, I don't think it's going to happen.
It very well could, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of just getting some veterans in. They don't even need to be starting veterans. There's going to be genuinely good six-man of the year contenders. People with good pedigrees with championship success. That's what they need. They got to settle them down. They got to put the eyes back on the prize. It's an interesting one, but yeah, that's how I'm feeling that one there. In regards to Washington, now let's have a look at everything here. Your top players, top 10 teams of the East as of the end of week 2. You had the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Bucks. You then had the Hawks, the Pacers, the Magic. They were your 6 at the moment, so they will be going straight through where they need to. Of course, your next 4 for that play-in tournament: Cavaliers, the Nets, the Knicks, and the Heat. So a few teams thereabouts. I just don't know how long a couple of them are going to last, but yeah, that is the top 10 in seedings for the East right now. It's been really, really interesting so far. Of course, along with the top 10 in the East, we have our East Player of the Week. It's a pretty easy one for me. There was only one team that went 3-0, and the leader of that 3-0 team was pretty damn good. That was Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. 3 games. They went 3-0. He played 32.1 minutes. But for Philadelphia, had a really, really nice week, as we mentioned. 34 points, 11 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.3 steals and a block a game on 3 turnovers. Shot 52.2% from the field, 42.9% from deep, and 96.9% from the free throw stripe. 32.1 minutes a game, 3 games, 3-0 record. Just a dominant display by the big man there, who's one of the more dynamic scorers across anybody in the league. It just gets pigeonholed the fact that he's a big man. It's as simple as that. It's ultimately why they try and put the brakes on him a little bit, but he's been playing really, really well here in the regular season. I think there's going to be a lot off his mind now. There's no James Harden. The fact that Tyrese Maxey's just going to go and either listen to him or do what he wants to say or not earn anything. We'll see how it goes. But I really feel that Embiid's had a really nice start here. He's had a really nice run, and he's certainly closing in, well, for me, certainly closing in towards that MVP race here at the end of the second week of the 2023-24 NBA season. Of course, along with the Eastern Conference, we have the Western Conference, and we'll start with the Clippers. They went 1-2 in the week, 3-3 so far on the season. Best player in the week, Paul George, 24 points, 6.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 2.3 steals on 3.3 turnovers. Respectable efficiency from the field. The Clippers' sole win coming from Orlando, getting the win there. They lost to the Lakers and lost to the Knicks. And again, it's now the question of chemistry with this team that lost to the Knicks, the first game of the James Harden period of this franchise. How long will it take for the chemistry to develop? The question of how many balls they need is always a laughable one, generally because, as everyone knows, there is clearly only one basketball on the floor. But when you look at the possession of this team, they've only got one player who can play off ball, and even then he does his best work with it in hand, and that's Kawhi. So how long will it take for this team to gel? I'm not really sure. Paul George, for me, has been their best player this year. I think he's been a genuine top 10 player in the league again this year. I just don't know how the chemistry is going to gel with this team. I don't think they're going to win a championship, particularly if they've got James Harden doing the bulk of the work, or if they've got him doing any sort of work with this team. We'll see how it continues to pan out, see how their chemistry grows, but I don't know. It's going to need to happen pretty quickly, because if they're going to be a step off in the West, they're going to be a step off a long way, that is, in the playoffs. But we'll see how that continues to develop there. Dallas on the week had another constructive week, 3-1 on the season, 3-1 on the week, 6-1 on the season, managed to scrape wins against Chicago, Charlotte and Orlando, went down to Dallas, and that was ultimately the big difference maker in their week. Best performer was Luka, cut back a little bit there, but of course you're going to look at the turnovers and efficiency, and that'll explain the drop in production. 26 points, 8 rebounds, 8.3 assists, 1 steal, 0.8 blocks, 6.3 turnovers. Shooting really poorly from the field as well. We'll get that one done. And again, it's that second option relief. Yeah, there's a second option, but it's got to be efficient, because Luka is known to have periods like this where he's just not good with the ball in hand, he's not great when shooting the basketball, and he's not really a good defender. So you couple that with the fact that you have second and third offensive options that aren't efficient, you lack defensive presence. And even though they're 6-1, it really doesn't show too much after 2 weeks when you consider the type of game style that they have. I think they will come back to the pack. I think they'll get caught out in a couple of situations. Again, there may be drama brewing. You never know behind the scenes with this team. You never know, particularly with the individuals that are on it. They very well may not be, but there is a chance that it is happening. So we'll see how this one continues to play out for Dallas. 3-1 again on the week, really nice. 6-1 on the season, great start. You're not going to scuff at that. The idea that 5 games above 500, it gives you a lot to work with as a side. I just think there's a lot of isolation still, and their inefficiencies when they come, they happen in a really big wave. So I wonder how Dallas can work on it. We'll see what happens from there. Over to Denver, cruising along, 3-1 week, again 7-1 on the season. Jokic, best player in the league right now, the best player for the Nuggets, and he may be starting to put a bit of a gap on just how much impact he has compared to everyone else in winning basketball games. 30 points, 13.5 rebounds, 8 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.5 blocks on 3 turnovers. 62% from the field is ridiculous. 81% from the free throw line is epically efficient for a big. He's making 35.3% of his threes on the week. Massive effort there. Lost out to Minnesota, their only loss of the season to that point there. Wins against Dallas, Chicago and New Orleans. Is it too early to call a repeat? I don't think so. I think that's the level that they're playing at. That's how good of a team I think they are. Be interesting to see how they go with Jamal Murray now that he's got an injury concern. But at the end of the day, it's Nikola Jokic. He's proven that he can get this done without crucial teammates around him. And he's just getting better. And I think he's having a better season than he was last year again. We're very early on. I mean, we're 10%. We've still got 90% of the journey to go. But he is playing some really good basketball, some standout basketball once again. I don't think it is too early to really call how much of a chance it is to repeat. But I think it is a very good chance indeed. So we'll see how that one pans out. But again, I think they're playing really good basketball. And I think they're certainly the brand and the team to catch. Of course, next team up, Golden State. 3-1 on the week, 6-2 on the season to this point. Steph Curry playing some really nice basketball once again, still proving to be one of the preeminent players of the league, and certainly one of the 2 best players this season for my liking. 28.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 0.8 steals, 4.8 turnovers, not ideal, certainly not okay. 50-40-90 shooting though, especially at the clip and the rate he puts up 3-pointers. Sensational stuff there. Again, 3-1 on the week. Defeated Sacramento, defeated Oklahoma City, defeated Detroit, lost to Cleveland. It's just going to be a matter of whether this veteran team can keep pace. The ultimate question is, can they keep up with the rest of the league? You've got the shooters to do it. You have the defensive presence to do it. You have the veterans to do it. You have the culture to do it. Can you put the structure and the execution in place? Right now, it's showing that they can do a little bit. They just don't have an answer to Jokic. That's the ultimate difference in the rest of the league. Do you have an answer to Jokic? If you got an answer to Jokic, you're doing okay. If you don't have an answer to Jokic, you're not doing okay. We'll see how this one continues to play out there for Golden State, but I think if everyone can start to really find their feet, really find their role, if they can continue to execute, there's no reason why they can't be playing the late part of the season, particularly in the West. And a lot of people are going to write them off as too old, but they certainly still have that ability, still have that potential. Let's see how it unfolds. If Steph Curry is going to be a 50-40-90 shooter, be an All-NBA first-team contender, be an MVP contender, Golden State can do whatever they want. There's no doubt about that one there. Over to Houston, who had a far better week than they did in the opening of the season. 0-3 in week 1, 3-0 in week 2. Really nice effort there. Defeated Sacramento twice, and again, we'll get to them a little bit later there on Struggle Street as it is. Defeated Charlotte as well. Alfred Şengün, nice balanced week for him once again. A nice efficient week once again. 17 points, 8 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 1.3 steals. I think you're going to be able to mould this guy into a Jokic kind of player, and for Houston that can be very, very dangerous indeed. 1.3 turnovers, 60.5 from the field. Massive effort there. Needs to lift a bit from outside if he's going to take him, and lift from the free throw line. There's no doubt about that. Just wonder whether a shared workload is exactly what Houston need to do. I don't think it's going to be able to be one of those seasons where Dylan Brooks does all the work, or Fred VanVleet does all the work, or Jalen Green does all the work, or Şengün does all the work. I think you're going to have a team that's mixed between 15 and 18 points amongst all its players, creating options. Everyone can step up when they need to. But the shared workload right now is what this team needs. They need to develop everyone. They need to find out where they're at, and then really, really try and target someone, whether they're going to develop one of these guys to be number 1, Whether they're going to allow Brooks and Van Vliet to really try and hold the fort together, I don't know. But it's clear right now that the best tactic for Houston is to try and share the workload, try and share every bit of possession around that they can. When they do that, they're going to be a far better team. I mean, you've only got to look at the effort they've been able to put in this week, 3-0, and certainly been able to give them a lot more airtime than I was last week. So the Rockets are doing their thing, and I think that shared workload is going to be key for them going forward. Moving over to the Lakers, the other team in LA, 1-2 on the week, 3-4 on the season. Too many ups and downs for me right now for LA. They look really good in spurts, but it's much like the Lakers for, well, pretty much every year except the bubble run that they had. LeBron with a really nice week, 29.7 points, 8.3 rebounds, 5 assists, some good defensive numbers there as well. Turnovers always seem to have been high possession for the man. 59.6 from the field, can't fault that. He's developed an okay to reliable three-point shot, 71% from the line, around career average there. Got the one win, as we mentioned, against the Clippers, but lost out to Orlando, lost out to Miami. A lot being made of that Miami game. I think that's just starting to show where the Lakers really lie at the moment. I think the real question is, when are they going to be able to use Christian Wood effectively? It's okay to recruit this really good big who can be a 17 and 10 guy who can defend the rim, but if he's not going to get touches and you're expecting him to get involved in the game and then you're dragging his stocks down and he's not going to be invested, then you're going to get the results you're currently getting with him. This seems to be a real trend with guys that come in that have this huge upside, that were playing really good basketball. They then all of a sudden get to the Lakers and get told, you need to adapt. And then all of a sudden their skill sets aren't utilised. And when their skill sets aren't utilised, they're then criticised as players. And it doesn't make any sense to do it. It's how they've always done it, but it's never made any sense to do it. I just think at some point they need to work out how they're going to use Christian Wood. If they can start really utilising Christian Wood and his size and his ability at the rim, then you have a bit of a better team. You can allow Davis to play that pick and pop 4 that he does and allow him to be that menace defensively. You can let LeBron do what he wants to do. You can stretch the floor with Hachimura. All of these factors here. But you've got a starting centre right now who isn't getting touches and is expected to just have an impact on the game instantly. That's not how it works. It's never worked like that. Very interesting to see what they do from here. 1-2 on the week, as I mentioned. Yeah, probably could have got the win against Miami. We are talking about a 4-3 team at that point. 2-1 team on the week. But at the end of the day, there just seems to be something off about the Lakers at the moment. We'll see where that one goes. I tell you what is off, that's Memphis right now. They are 1-6 on the season, 1-2 on the week. Lost a tight one to Portland that could have very well seen it go their way. Lost to Utah, but did get an avenge win against Portland in their third game. Desmond Bane's been having another good season, had a really good season last year, had a good season the year before. He's really trying to step up and do what he needs to do. 28 points, 6.3 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals and a block on 4 turnovers. Respectable efficiency, it could be better, converting at the line at least, but the real question now is how big of a trade piece is Desmond Bane? He's a genuine second option. He's been a genuine second option for 2 years. He would have been the most improved player 2 years ago if it hadn't been for Ja. And then all of a sudden he's trying to step up his offensive game here again in the absence of Ja. He's getting no support. So what's going on with the rest of the team? Because Ja brings a lot offensively, but he doesn't bring this change of wind, momentum, swinging, winning games level of offense. So I think for Desmond Bane right now, it's a put up or shut up situation. Yep, Desmond Bane is a guy we very well could keep. Desmond Bane is a guy we can have as a second option. Desmond Bane could go somewhere else to be a first option and get paid. Memphis really need to be careful with this one and not blow it. All of a sudden the blame has been arrested onto Dillon Brooks and everything that went on last year. Dillon Brooks was turned up to Houston. He's played pretty well. Played pretty consistent. Played how he did with Memphis prior to the playoffs last year. I mean, if you're going to sack guys based on playoff performance, Harrison Barnes should be out of the league, but he's still there. He's produced. I'm just saying, certain key characteristics you need to see. I wouldn't have thought that Dillon Brooks was the main cultural issue with Memphis. That's all I'm saying in regards to that one. Minnesota, though, had a really nice week. 3-0, 4-2 on the week. Best performer, Anthony Edwards, really trying to turn things up. 31 points, 6.3 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 1.3 steals, 4.3 turnovers, high usage, but not ideal to be giving the ball up that many times. 60% from the field, though. Cannot fault that. That's elite level efficiency on the offensive end. 3-0 on the week, as we mentioned. Defeated Denver, handed them their only loss of the season so far. Defeated Utah, had a really, really good effort there. And, of course, won their third game on the week. 3-0 on that one there. The big question is, how long can each player play their role? Because you've got plenty of guys who are doing their thing. Nikhil Alexander-Walker is starting to do his thing. You know, on the other side of things as well, if you want to look at exactly how things are being handed out in regards to Rudy Gobert, in regards to Karl Anthony Towns. They're starting to sort of embrace the position there, especially with Anthony Edwards being number one. And you only had to look at it in that Boston game there, their final game of the week. Anthony Edwards said, yep, it's my team. This is for me. This is what I got to do. I just find it extraordinary that it's taken this team so long to do that. As I mentioned, you know, if they can stick within their role, stick within their positions, you've got Anthony Edwards as a leader. You're looking like a pretty good team, and Anthony Edwards looking like a very much a most improved / All-NBA / MVP level candidate. But can it be sustained is the question. Minnesota can sustain. I don't think anyone's too worried about it there. Again, they've beaten Denver. They've beaten Boston. Two of the best teams, well, arguably the best team in the East and the best team in the West. So the measurables are there. But if their teammates start dropping out, start doing their own thing, there becomes a little more of an issue there. And we'll see whether they're able to handle it. But I just think right now, if everyone's going to be able to play their role and they're able to stick fat, then they certainly will have some better results on the way. For New Orleans, 2-2 on the week, 4-3 on the season. Of course, the CJ McCollum issue with a collapsed lung and some continuous injury concerns with Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. It's a matter of coming down to who actually played in 4 games on the week, and that was Jonas Valanciunas. Valanciunas with 13.5 points, 10 rebounds, 2.3 assists, some defensive numbers as well, efficient scoring splits. 2-2 on the week, as I mentioned, defeated OKC and Detroit, lost to Atlanta and Denver. But is the injury bug starting to bite New Orleans? And if it is, what does it mean for the success of the team? We saw this last year. Their 2 best players went down with injury. Didn't look the same. And I think if you're going to have some of your key rotational pieces now do that, all of a sudden your load management goes out the door. So for New Orleans, it's a matter of just trying to avoid that injury bug biting as early as it can, especially main concerns. You know, little minor niggles are always going to happen, but the Pelicans can't afford for major issues to Zion. They can't afford major issues to Brandon Ingram. CJ McCollum takes a lot of shots. There goes a lot of your offense there. How adaptable they are is going to be the question. I don't know how adaptable it is, but there needs to be a level of it. Because if they're not adaptable, they will be in a spot of bother. Speaking of spot of bother, they've started to work through a little bit here. That's the Oklahoma City Thunder. 1-2 on the week, 4-3 on the season. Chet Holmgren having a really, really nice week. 19.7 points, 10.3 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 2.7 turnovers, magnificent shooting splits, and getting his numbers where he can. Lost to New Orleans, lost to Golden State, got a win against Atlanta. Will his health determine the season? They've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is one of, if not the best shooting guard in the league. You've got Josh Giddey, one of the best up-and-coming point guards in the league. And then all of a sudden, you've got this absolute unicorn of a dude who can give you 16 and 16 with 7 block shots. Not bad. It's a lot of effort. So it's just going to really depend on his health and whether that's going to decide the season. Because again, they've got enough draft stock. If they don't want to really push and prod towards it, they don't have to. And you've got plenty of ammunition in the gun, so to speak. So will Holmgren hold up? I think he can. But if he has a catastrophic injury, that just resets the franchise again. Particularly because I feel this is the point they're building to. If they don't get any success out of this point, they'll just pack it up. That'll be it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be someone else. Lou Dort will be somewhere else. and it may just be down to Josh Giddey to try and run the show, but still a bit of work to do. I don't mind it though. I think Holmgren's been a really good addition for them. You're not going to really curse someone of his height that can play both sides of the ball. So I think it does just come down to his health. And look, if he's going to hold up, great. If he's not, then, a genuine spot of bother there. Speaking of spot and bother, right now that seems to be the Phoenix Suns. They're 1-3 on the week, 3-4 on the season. Their best performer, Kevin Durant, 31.5 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. The usual numbers across the board there. Some efficient shooting splits. But they lost to the Spurs twice. They lost to Philadelphia and barely got a win against Detroit. And I think at this point in the back half of his career, the real question now has to be, is anyone going to be able to stay healthy around Kevin Durant, let him have another run? Everywhere he's going, it just seems injury. No, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I've got problems here. Oh, I've got problems there. Oh, slight niggle to Durant. Very much minimal sort of stuff impacting from his point of view. But my goodness, if only this guy's had some healthy teammates the last 3 years. Willing, participating, healthy teammates. Different kettle of fish. This is a guy who was 30 points on 55, 40, 90 last year. Didn't get as many games in, but my God, needs to be acknowledged for the efforts that he has been putting in. I'd love to just see if some of these teams can be healthy, just to see if they can assist him. If they could do that, this Phoenix Suns team is a lot different. Of course, Bradley Beal to be with the team, Devin Booker to be with the team, it changes your outlook again, but just mental to think that Kevin Durant's routinely done this for the last decade, and for at least the last 3 years, let alone 4 or 5 years, all his other key players have just been injured or out. So we'll see whether Phoenix can bounce back and see whether anyone else can really get a hand up and really try and assist Kevin Durant in this one. Over to Portland, 2-1 on the week, so they've started to really try and claw back a little bit. 3-4 on the season. Shaedon Sharp really trying to have a go of it there. 23 points, 6.7 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1 steal, 1.3 blocks, inefficient scoring overall. Got the win against Detroit, got the win in the first game against Memphis, went down in the second. I think the real question there, though, is whether Scoot Henderson is really ready for the league right now. I know he's a rookie and you've got to give him some respect and you've got to give him space and you've got to let him grow. I'm all for that. But if you're going to draft a guy and expect him to jump into your lineup, he's got to be NBA ready. I just don't know if Scoot Henderson is NBA ready right now. In fact, I think it's leading to a really good cross argument of staying in school, developing your game, coming out when you're ready to go, making it more of a man's league, etc., etc., etc. I could really go on about it all night. But I just wonder whether Henderson really is ready for the NBA. I do wonder how long it's going to be until he is. You never know, it might just be a phase, but I haven't seen anything too promising to suggest as a rookie for the pick he was that he could justify that pick. Just my opinion. It very well may change. But it's just one of these ones where, okay, you're going against Wemby, you're going against Holmgren, I get it. But you can't be a top 3 pick in a team that really wanted you and just not deliver. We'll see how it all goes, though. The Blazers have plenty of time. Only a couple of more teams available now. We'll go to Sacramento. They went 0-3 on the week. Of course, De'Aaron Fox not playing in all games meant that their best player was Domantas Sabonis, which generally isn't bad, but when he's the peak scorer at 14 points, you are genuinely trailing some offense throughout on the week. 11.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 0.3 steals and 0.7 blocks. Player trying to be efficient there, Sabonis, but you lose to Golden State and you get beat by Houston twice. Their offense has disappeared, and their offense has disappeared with De'Aaron Fox, so make of that what you wish. I love Sabonis. I think he's one of the best players in the league. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. But when your evidence really just sits there and supports it, that there's a guy who, was backwards and forwards with being all-star selection and getting things done, all of a sudden he started to make a move. Yeah, we'll see how this all goes here. I think Sacramento are up a familiar creek without a paddle. They've got one guy who wants to try and steer the ship, but it's already hit the iceberg and the band's kind of already playing. So we'll see what Sabonis can do. Genuinely see what he can do. We know that he's capable of being that all-NBA third centre. He's probably the third best centre in the league. but he's going to need to play like it every single night for them to have a chance. There's no doubt about that. Over to San Antonio, 2-2 on the week. Victor Wembanyama, they're clearly the best player, getting it done on both ends of the floor, slowly building his efficiency. Defeated Phoenix twice, lost to Toronto, and got absolutely belted by Indiana. The real question is, though, is the league taking full notice? Him and Holmgren probably in the same question there, really. We're talking about guys at 7'4", well above 7 foot at least, but 7'4", with a handle, with a jump shot, can play good defense, can facilitate. An absolute dream, every coach's nightmare would be about the only way to put it. But yeah, I just wonder if they're paying attention, because that was a massive game, massive games against Phoenix as a rookie, as a teenager. We'll see how he continues to develop and how he continues to grow. There'll be more absolutely fascinating and freakish stuff as the season goes along. But I just hope the league is really ready for this one. Really taking notice. It's different. It's very different indeed. And some of these numbers won't be a sophomore slump when it comes in. That'd be the best way to put it. Generally, you'll see a rookie or two drop down. I don't necessarily think you're going to see that with Wembanyama. He's been ready to go, well, since the get-go. And finally, we head over to Utah. They were 1-3 on the week, 2-6 on the season. Laurie Markkinen, their best performer, but he has certainly dipped in his production. 23 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 0.8 steals, and 0.5 blocks on 1.5 turnovers. 47.6% from the field, 43.6 from deep, 83.3 from the line. So he does have a bit of a shooting touch there, but only the one win. That was against Memphis. They lost to Orlando, Minnesota, and Chicago. And I think the real question is adjusting the small ball lineups. Are they too tall? I can respect the height. I can respect the reasoning for it. But it's just not going to win your basketball games unless those guys are out on the perimeter that are bigs, are 50, 40, 90 shooters. If you can do that, hold it accountable and get it done inside, oh boy. A different kettle of fish, but we'll have to see exactly how that one is going to unfold for them. But once they get that balance with that height and the perimeter and being able to get it done and maybe locking in a bit defensively, it's certainly going to change the game, certainly going to change the outlook they have for everything there. But until that point, it could be a very mismanaged roster, a very mismanaged lineup, and there's going to be more questions and concerns for a Utah team there if they continue to do that there in regards to just playing tall and not playing an adjusted lineup. So we'll see how that continues to work for them. Of course, out of the Western Conference are the 10 best teams in the West. Obviously, our opening 6 teams, the Nuggets, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Nuggets, the Mavericks, the Warriors, the T-Wolves, the Pelicans, and the Thunder. There your 6, and then your 8 is the Clippers, Rockets, Spurs, and Lakers. So it sort of looks very similar to how I thought it would. I think the Clippers will do a little bit more, the Spurs may do a little bit more, the Lakers may do a little bit more. I'd expect the Thunder to bounce back at some point. It's a long season, there's no doubt about it. It's certainly the top 10 of the West, especially after 2 weeks. Some interesting competition going on there. And finally, we go to the player of the week on the Western Conference. Pretty easy, Nikola Jokic. Played 4 games, averaged just under 34 a game. Team went 3-1. Massive week, as I mentioned, statistically. Rounded 30, 14, and 8 on 62% shooting. Ladies and gentlemen, he's clearly the best player in the league. He's clearly got the biggest impact on winning. And offensively, I think he's clearly the best big since Shaq. And he's scoring as efficiently as Shaq. And there's more production through his passing. And he's a better rebounder. Very interesting just how people will see that comparison there. I think you can make of that as you wish. Now, obviously, we're talking about a guy with multiple championships, multiple finals MVPs in a different era. But Jokic is a huge dude who's generating mountains of points, mountains of rebounds, can shoot the ball. Again, a 3-1 record there for Denver, and I think he's going to be just as crucial now with Murray out to again just show that he can play, that he can get it done. He's making them work for it, he's making them earn it. But there's no doubt about it, player of the Western Conference for the week, Nikola Jokic, the best player on the planet, and starting even early to make a gap on the MVP conversations all around the league. Anyway, guys, that's been me for my wrap of week 2 of the 2023-24 NBA season. It's been an interesting week with some interesting characters there. I hope you've enjoyed the video. That's been me, guys. I'm out.